Hey there, fellow Reddit enthusiasts. If you love diving into intriguing Reddit stories, you'll want to stick around till the end. We've got a captivating one lined up for you today. For this video, we're delving into the fascinating world of relationships, so buckle up for a deep dive into some compelling stories. Me, 52M, just found out at least 4 of my 5 children, 33F, 30F, 28M, 24F, 14F are not mine. Wife, 51, won't say anything. First of all, I'm sorry if this ends up being long and rambly. I am not really in the best state of mind. My world has been turned upside down over the last couple of weeks. I just want to write as much context as possible so I can get the best advice needed. For obvious reasons, I am not yet comfortable talking about this with my friends, parents, siblings. Background: I met my wife when we were in high school and we married in college. We have 5 beautiful children together. Really, I consider them a total blessing regardless of what I'm about to bring up. And up until a couple of weeks ago, I thought that we had the perfect marriage. We were typical high school sweethearts. We go out together. We never fight. I feel like I've done everything a loving husband should do. I am saying this not to make myself out as the perfect husband. For example, my work has always meant I work long hours and maybe haven't always been there when she needed me. But I want to stress that I've never felt our marriage was in any trouble. And never in a million years would I ever have suspected my wife of being disloyal. She's always done everything she could to support me and take care of our children. Now, my eldest daughter recently had an ancestry test done, and the results of the ancestry test strongly suggested I was not her father. She confided this to me privately, showing me the results, and I could tell she was visibly upset by this. Of course, the first thing I did was reassure her that no matter what, she's my daughter, and I'll always love her unconditionally. But secondly, the two of us decided to get an official paternity test since the ancestry tests are not completely reliable. It comes back, and I am indeed not her biological father. This news really broke me. I'm ashamed to say I broke down in tears in front of my daughter. The combination of finding out about my wife's infidelity and how upset I was making my daughter by how I was reacting. I really wish I had kept it in for her sake, but I didn't. Following this, I asked my other children, except my youngest, to come and see me. I wanted to know the extent of my wife's infidelity. If it was a one-off, I could maybe work past it, especially given how long ago it would be. However, I didn't want to tell my youngest as she is still in school, a teenager, and really I didn't think it was appropriate to tell her yet. We tell the other 3 what has happened. I reassure them that I love them unconditionally, and that I'll always be their dad, but that I need to know how long this has been going on. God, I can't begin to explain how touching their reaction was. They didn't care I wasn't their biological father. They were just upset at how heartbroken I was. I feel like the only thing that has kept me going these last couple of weeks is their unwavering support. So we have paternity tests for each of the 3 done. Not only are none of them my biological children, together 4 of my children have 3 different fathers, which somehow made it worse. It's like she wasn't just having an ongoing affair, she was having multiple. I can't explain how this make it worse, but it just does. So I confront my wife with this, expecting her to confess and beg for forgiveness. She doesn't confess. She doesn't even take it seriously. She says the tests must be flawed. All 4? How the hell am I supposed to take that seriously? I keep bringing it up and she keeps brushing it off, getting progressively more annoyed at me. When I bring it up, she will try and guilt trip me. We've been together since high school. Do you seriously not trust me? Etc. But how am I supposed to trust her in the face of such overwhelming evidence? Now that I have rambled and explained what has happened, I guess let me ask a few direct questions for advice. How can I reassure my children this doesn't change anything between us? I feel like the way I have reacted, total breakdowns, has made them second-guess this despite however many times I reassure them. How do I handle my youngest daughter? I feel like our marriage is beyond saving, and I will need to tell my daughter something. I don't want her to know the truth until she's older, but I also don't want my wife lying and making me out to be the villain. Is there any way at all, you think I could or should save my marriage? I've been with my wife my entire life. It's almost impossible to see a life without her. I know that the answer should be a clear-cut, leave her, but we have 5 kids together. If there's anything that can be done to save our marriage, I want to consider it seriously. Get second tests just in case some freak accident has occurred. Confront my wife with all 4 of my older children present. Tell my youngest of the situation. Ask her if she wants to have a paternity test. It will be entirely her decision. I'm 100% going to get some form of therapy. My mental state has really been deteriorating over the last couple of weeks, and I owe it to my kids to hold it together. Depending on whether my wife tells the truth and what her explanation is, if any, I have not ruled out some form of counseling. But at the moment, I think divorce is inevitable, unless she changes her attitude drastically. Contact a lawyer and prepare for divorce if it comes to that. Once again, I'd like to thank all of you for the time you took to express your support and share advice. How did the ancestry results suggest I wasn't her father? My family is entirely Irish, No relatives outside of Ireland other than my immediate family, and I even have the stereotypical red hair. My daughter's ancestry results showed nothing from the British Isles, Western Europe, Northern Europe. That's what set off alarm bells, but it's by no means conclusive, hence the paternity tests. Which two children share the same father? My two eldest daughters share the same father. How did your wife conceive your children? Our eldest daughter was not planned. All the others were planned. Each time we conceived several months after we started trying. Our first 3 planned children were both our ideas, while she pressured me into having our youngest. She was in her late 30s and wanted one last child before it was too late, and eventually I agreed. She was conceived several months after we started trying too. Are you infertile? I don't know. I've never had a fertility test done, but the fact that none of our planned children are mine makes me think that I might be. I will have a fertility test as soon as possible. My kids and I confronted their mother shortly after making that Reddit post. It really didn't go well. I think the prospect that no one believed her finally hit home because she completely broke down and apologized profusely, but refused to explain herself, or anything that would give myself peace of mind. For the next few weeks, we barely said a word to each other. I was hoping she was thinking it over, and I expected her to eventually sit me down and explain herself. I figured she was so far deep in a lie that got out of control. She needed time to think things over. Nope. I came home one evening to find she had committed suicide by overdosing. So I lost the love of my life, and I'll never know what mistakes she had made. I really wish I could go back in time and forget about it all. Whatever mistakes she made, I honestly wanted to work through it, and now I'm just riddled with guilt that I pressed her for an answer. The worst part of this entire ordeal was watching my kids work so hard to keep me together after having lost their mother. Anyway, please tell your family you love them while you have the chance. Firstly, kudos to you for keeping your composure amidst this familial tornado. Your emotional roller coaster makes the stock market look like a merry-go-round. Finding out you're not the father of one child is a shock, but discovering you've unintentionally become the patriarch of a blended family without the blending is a whole new level of, wait, what? Your wife's nonchalant attitude towards the paternity results is almost impressive. Flawed tests, you say? Well, darling, these tests aren't IKEA furniture. You can't just blame them for a misstep. I wonder if she'd trust the same tests if they confirmed you were, in fact, the father. Now, on to the kids. It's heartwarming to see your older offspring rallying behind you like the Avengers in a family crisis. They're probably hoping for a superhero ending, but alas, reality seems to be more like a Greek tragedy, with less divine intervention. And the youngest, the innocent soul caught in this whirlwind of deceit. You're right. Teenage years are challenging enough without a familial bombshell. She might need a crash course in genetics and a bit of therapy. But remember, teenagers are like cats. They'll come to you when they're ready, not a second sooner. As for saving the marriage, well, the ship seems to have sailed faster than a Kardashian-Jenner scandal. Marriage counseling? Maybe. But your wife's nonchalant attitude suggests she needs a reality check more than therapy. I'd say start looking for a good lawyer. You're navigating the legal system now, Captain Chaos. On a serious note, though, life throws curveballs that we might not dodge gracefully. Your situation is the Olympic gymnastics routine of curveballs. Amidst the chaos, it's crucial to find support, be it from friends, family, or professional help. Therapy isn't just for couples. It's like a spa day for your mind. It's that time again. We're transitioning to the community comments. Keep those thoughts coming, and let's make this discussion even more interesting. User TextFiend. I wouldn't worry about trying to save the marriage. If she's still lying to you in the face of overwhelming evidence, then there's nothing left to save. Talk to a lawyer about how to start the divorce process, and follow their advice to the letter. Sit your youngest down and have an age-appropriate conversation with her. Tell her that you and her mother will be getting a divorce, that it turns out that the other kids aren't your biological kids, that you still love them and are still their father, but you won't be able to stay married to their mother, that she can have a DNA test done as well if she wants, but that she doesn't have to. You'll love her, and she'll be your daughter either way. She also doesn't have to decide that right now. Then take it one step at a time. Sort out the logistics of leaving, find yourself a new place, and get yourself set up. From there, I'd start looking at ways to maintain your relationship with all of your children. With the youngest, make sure to get as much custody as you can, even full custody if that's possible. For all of the children, try to come up with some traditions that everyone could enjoy. Maybe they all come over for dinner at your house once a month. Maybe there's a standing invitation for any of them to come over for Sunday lunch. Maybe you get together every so often and try something new together. Pottery, kayaking, rock climbing, etc. Whatever will work with everyone's schedules. Make sure you keep in touch with each of them individually as well. Ask about how their lives are going. Offer to help them with projects they're doing, especially around the home. Be good to them and to yourself, and never badmouth their mother. I don't think you would, from what you've written, but try never to set them up in opposition to her, or that they can't see her, treat her well if they want you to like them. You'll be co-parenting with your soon-to-be ex for the next several years, so make sure that's as easy as possible for everyone concerned. User despairing, Catty. If you and her siblings take a positive and united approach, I think it would go all right. Just make sure, as you did with your other kids, that you let her know that you all love her so very much. I don't care about the biological aspect, I say your kids, because when it comes down to it, you raise them with love and compassion, which shows through their reactions to this. She will appreciate the honesty, especially if everyone currently knows but her. Good luck to you and your family now and in the future. User Ryusei71. I am also an attorney, and I second this advice and response. There is absolutely no reason to contact or even speak with an attorney until you decide to file for divorce. You can and should begin researching family law attorneys and obtain some recommendations from friends, colleagues, and perhaps other family members in the event you decide to move forward with this option. Be discreet. Don't threaten divorce. In addition to determining whether the youngest is your child, I also suggest taking inventory of all real property and personal property assets and note which assets were inherited or gifted to you, in case you are in a community property state. I'm not saying to dispose or convert assets. Just figure out what you and your wife own. Do not waste your time and money speaking with an attorney until you have a decision to make. Counseling may be more appropriate at this time. Thanks for the engaging comments so far. Now, let's shift our focus and immerse ourselves in the excitement of our next story. Ready to see where this one takes us. My 19F boyfriend, 18M, jokingly called me ugly, and it broke me. Context: I have always had pretty bad self-esteem issues. I most definitely wasn't the luckiest when it came to the gene pool, and with time, I have learned to own up to that without letting it make me feel so badly. Though I do have precedents regarding things such as not taking pictures or avoiding mirrors, I would still take my time to dress up and get ready and feel pretty, even though I know most wouldn't perceive me that way. What mattered to me was feeling good about myself. My boyfriend knows all about this. Today, while we were together just having a normal talk, he made a statement I cannot remember, and I replied by calling him stinky as a joke. Immediately his smile dropped, which is weird because we have a running jokey with each other, where we sometimes tease each other lightheartedly, with boundaries, and him being called stinky is something that has never bothered him before, nor something that he has ever expressed any bitterness over. He has good hygiene and he's aware of it. Yet, or a moment, I could almost feel it coming. With a serious face, he said, "You're ugly." Ouch. Now you know how that feels, but you know it isn't true. It turned a time where we were joking and laughing together into something so bad in a matter of seconds. He has never said that to me before, let alone in all seriousness. I instinctively started crying and told him I'll go take a walk to calm myself, by myself. It also marked the first time I ever wanted to be left alone instead of talking about the problem. He decided to follow me and repeatedly saying he's sorry and that he finds me beautiful. But I feel like that comment shattered every last bit of confidence I had left in me. I no longer cared about how he perceived me because I was too busy crying over the way I was feeling about myself. I never once made a comment calling him unattractive, and to be honest, he's quite the catch. I'm head over heels about him and I find him to be the most attractive man in the world. I know I reacted too emotionally, so if you're here to tell me that, don't. I just want to know how I can fix things with him because I love him more than anything, but I don't want that love to come at the expense of my self-esteem. I already talked to him about it and he said he understands my reaction and that it wasn't his intention. So how can I get over this? I don't want it to be a deal breaker, even though it almost feels like one to me. Is there any way I can be less emotional about this? If he had ever posed a problem with it, I would have stopped immediately. I get nothing from purposely upsetting the person I love most, and that's not at all what I want for him. I know playful name-calling is a dangerous game to play when I have a low self-esteem, but what he intended was not to be playful as well as breaking boundaries. I already apologized to him for calling him stinky even though I wasn't aware. It bothered him, because for him to have such a reaction must have meant it triggered something bad in him that he just chose to ignore all times before. I also told him I'll drop the name-calling completely. It still gives him no right to hit what he knows is my weak spot and call me ugly with a dead serious expression to my face. If you're here to tell me I'm abusive towards him, don't. He himself expressed he knew I never meant to harm him with what I called him, but still decided to say what he said. I'm reevaluating the entire relationship now because I cannot be walking on eggshells, fearing he will hit my weakest spot again, over what he knows was meant to be a harmless joke. If that's still not enough, read some of the replies I've given people under this post. Stay tuned because in the upcoming story update, we'll be incorporating more of your opinions. Your perspectives shape the narrative, so keep those comments flowing. My BF 18M called me 19F, ugly and it broke me. Update. I apologized for saying something that hurt him even if I wasn't aware of it, and I said I'd drop the name calling completely since from what he'd shown me, it does bother him even though he'd never expressed that before. He later admitted that he only bottled it up for so long because he knew I had no bad intentions. This made me feel remorse for all the time we'd been playing and laughing together, lightly teasing each other with me thinking we were actually having a good time. When I asked for clarity because I was still upset about the situation, he shut down and would only answer my messages with, "Okay, all right, I'm sorry," when I basically kept asking him to have a conversation with me because I needed to know the truth. Why would he say such a thing? Was it insecurity? Was it revenge? Was it malicious? Was it weaponized incompetence? I know I'm unattractive, but that doesn't give him a right to use my deepest insecurity against me that I have opened up to him about, only because he found it convenient to teach me a lesson about how I didn't intend to make him feel. But even then, his short answers would come 10-20 minutes after I'd sent him a message. He admitted that he only locked us out of a productive conversation because in his head, I was going to break up with him. I never said I would do such a thing. I even told him that I love him too much and want to fix things. The only other thing he kept telling me is, "You are the most beautiful to me." But all I could hear was, "You're ugly, but I find you pretty." I told him so many times I no longer cared how pretty he perceived me because when he called me ugly, it confirmed all the insecurities I'd previously told him about. That ugly is simply all I am. There's no room for pretty in this girl. The only instance where he gave me an answer longer than 20 words was when he was expressing his own grief about how he felt in regards of what I said to him. Which, mind you, it is completely fine and only natural to use as many words as you can to convert one's emotions. It was the lack of reciprocity that hurt me. The absence of attempts at fixing things beyond okay and all right is something that hurt me, and I made him aware of it. There were zero attempts to fight for us once he had admittedly convinced himself that I was going to dump him, and all it taught me is, I'm not going to give you clarity because you're going to break up with me anyway. The whole time I was unaware of what was going on in his head while we were talking about the situation. He said he would feel like a creep trying to chase me or fight for us if I wanted to break up with him. Therefore, he made no attempts to do so. He claims to love me, but I find it hard to believe in a situation like this. I love him, and I would never do what he did to me. Is there anything I could do to fix this? Is moving on all there's left to do? Is there something I could ask him to actually make progress in this relationship? He keeps saying he wants to be with me, but every other minute asks if I want to be with him. For reference, I always tell him I do. Heartbreak has a way of tearing through the fabric of a relationship, and this tale is no different. The sting of being called ugly by someone you love, especially when they know your insecurities, cuts deep. It's like a punch to the gut, leaving you breathless and questioning your worth. The aftermath unfolds with apologies and promises, but the air is thick with silence. Those one-word responses feel like a barricade, shutting down any chance for a real connection. It's as if he's built a wall, brick by brick, leaving her on one side and him on the other. Then comes the self-fulfilling prophecy, the assumption that she's ready to walk away. The lack of effort to bridge the gap is a bitter pill to swallow. Love shouldn't be a guessing game. It should be a shared journey of understanding and growth. And amidst the chaos, there's a plea for clarity, a desire for real communication. Because love, no matter how deep, can't thrive in a vacuum of silence and assumptions. So here they stand at the crossroads. Is it a path to healing or a journey toward letting go? The emotional roller coaster has taken them to the edge, and the question remains, can they find a way back to each other, or is it time to embrace the unknown? In the intricate dance of love and hurt, the music plays on, waiting for them to decide the next step. Now, let's shift our focus to the comments section and see what our fantastic community has to say about this. Your insights always add an extra layer to the conversation. User, Trays. Boundaries about the light teasing had been set beforehand, and neither of us have ever showed any remorse towards it. Unfortunately, the reality he can't communicate well showed up much sooner than his offhand comment. It turns out while he had established a boundary, it wasn't actually one he was comfortable with. And over time, he bottled it up, and it resulted in an interaction that nearly sunk the relationship. Now, for fear you were going to break up, he bottled up again, stonewalled you. And my worry is that even if you make your peace with what he said, I do think it was likely exclusively to upset you. That he is both prone to that at all, and rather than take steps to avoid these situations or resolve them, will clam up. Healthy communication is a core pillar of a dynamic, and he seems incapable of it. He admitted that he only locked us out of a productive conversation because in his head, I was going to break up with him. His insecurity has become a self-fulfilling prophecy. He was scared you'd dump him, so he took a course of action likely to result in that. If and when you dumped him, he could say, "See, I knew it," and reinforce the insecurity. After all, it's easier to embrace it than try and fight back and grow. Just be careful. I worry this shows problems a lot deeper than you hope, especially about whether he can maintain a healthy relationship at all. User Zach Waldo, just want to say, you have an incredibly level head on your shoulders for the age you guys are sitting at. I've rarely seen someone from your age set not only be able to recognize so much of what's going on, but to cleanly compartmentalize it and give it healthy room. All of what you said was spot on, and I'd say you have a good intuition and emotional balance. As for the question you asked at the end, personally, I'd find it worrisome for someone to lock out emotionally and verbally like that. Similarly, if equally find it worrisome for them not to fight for the relationship. I don't think he's ready for a relationship, sadly. He's way too reactive and anxious about theoretical situations that haven't even happened. That gets tiresome, really tiresome to maintain and support or affirm. Honestly, you guys are so young. I think there's better out there, and you deserve and will find someone that matches you better, mentally and emotionally. You're about to start one of the largest transitional periods in your life that will be filled with so many new interesting people. You deserve to have space and openness for that. And I'm positive there's someone out there that will find you just lovely and will match the emotional and mental sides of things too. User Thors Rasiligef replies, "Thank you so much for the kind words. I mean that weariously. I find myself tearing up again right now. I do find it worrisome that he would completely stonewall me and emotionally lock out of a situation because of a hypothetical situation I reassured him wouldn't even happen. I know it might get tiring to support or reaffirm, but I feel like part of me has to be wrong about something if he truly feels that way. I wish to find out what makes him feel so bad. What makes him think that almost any time I get upset with something that he does, it has to mean I'm going to break up with him. I never threatened breakup. I don't want to cause him sorrow, and I only want what's best for him. If this relationship is salvageable, I will try my best to fight for it. If the fight is only being held by me, I worry I might have to give up very soon. Your words are very wise. I really mean this in the best way possible, and I hope it doesn't sound weird, but I wish to grow up to be as emotionally intelligent as you are. Your advice is great, and I thank you again for it. Ready for the next adventure? Let's jump into our next story. And don't forget to hit that like button if you're as excited as I am to explore what comes next. My 29F recently engaged friend 29F implied I wasn't engaged because my boyfriend 31M doesn't actually want to get married after being together 3 years. And I'm upset because I'm scared she's right. My friend Elise 29F is engaged to Rick 32. And I, 29F, am dating Luke 32. Elise and Rick have been engaged for a year, together for 2. And I've been with Luke for 3 years. Fake names. So Elise and Rick had their engagement party Sunday afternoon. I was chatting with Elise, looking at her ring, and I'm not going to lie, I felt a bit of envy. Luke and I have talked about marriage, but we haven't even looked at rings yet. He says he wants to marry me though, but I do think it's taking a long time. So I asked Elise what made Rick propose to her, like how it happened. She told me that on their first date, she told him that he had a deadline. I asked what she meant, and she said that she told Rick she wasn't going to wait around 2, 3, 4, 5 years for a man, any man, not him in particular, to marry her. She said she wants kids with the right guy, but didn't want to have kids without a stable marriage and a house. Well, they have the house and now are getting married. Another one of her friends, don't know her age, but I'll call her Heidi, said she was shocked it didn't make Rick run for the hills. Elise laughed and said, "Well, it wasn't an ultimatum, it was a fact. If after 2 years you still can't tell if I'm the one, then I'm clearly not, and I will be moving on, period." I told Elise that if I told Luke that, he would leave me. That's when Elise said that Luke probably isn't the right one. Then, if after 3 years he'd leave me for expecting marriage. That hurt my feelings, so I told her that marriages don't always last and doesn't mean someone is the one just because they propose. She said she wasn't worried, that she and Rick were in love and knew life would not be easy, but she's prepared to make it work. She also said she knows marriage isn't for everyone, which is fine so long as your partner feels the same, but that marriage is a value of hers, and she wasn't going to waste time with someone who so clearly didn't have the same values of her. That's when Heidi asked me what my problem was. I told her I didn't have a problem, just stating a fact. Then Heidi asked how long I had been with Luke. I said 3 years, and she asked if I wanted to get married. I said yes. And when she asked what about Luke, I just excused myself to the restroom. Not much else happened at the party, but when Luke and I left, I told him about the conversation. Luke laughed and called Elise ridiculous. I asked what he meant, and he said, verbatim, "Only desperate and crazy women have a policy like that. Let it happen when it feels right." So I asked him if he wanted to marry me, to which he said of course, and I asked then, why weren't we engaged when we've been together longer? He said he wasn't ready yet, and our relationship was fine the way it was. I asked how long did he have to wait to know, and he shrugged and said, "Does it matter? We're together, and that's what is important." The conversation paused for a minute, and then Luke asked me not to be like Elise. He said that he doesn't like being forced to do something. I asked him if Rick felt that way. he's good friends with Rick. He admitted that Rick never said he felt forced, and that he had been planning to propose to Elise 6 months after they met, but waited a bit to make sure he wasn't just jumping into something. I asked Luke if it would be okay for me to look at rings. He said I could, but to not get my heart set on anything because he wasn't ready, and he said even if he wasn't willing to spend more than $1,500 on an engagement ring. Elise's ring obviously cost more than that. I never asked her how much it was, but center diamond is 2 carats, and the rest of the band is covered in diamonds. I remember she was asked once how much it was. She wouldn't answer, but said that Rick bought a ring he wanted her to love and did not care about the price. He found the ring she'd like, looked at the price, and saved money to purchase it debt-free. I didn't mention that to Lukey, but her telling me that came back when Lukey said he was only willing to spend $1,500 on a ring I'm not even allowed to really look for. I'm not really sure why, but the conversation with Luke and Elise has made me very sad. I'm slightly angry at Elise for her implications, but mostly I'm disappointed in Luke based on our conversation Sunday. He hasn't mentioned it since this weekend, but it's all I can think about. Did Elise go about it the right way? Is Luke wasting my time? I don't know. Both of those conversations Sunday have me feeling like something is off. Luke emerges as the laid-back hero, dismissing Elise's tactics as the musings of the desperate and eccentric. His philosophy, let love bloom naturally, and engagement rings should come with a reasonable price tag. A man of fiscal responsibility or perhaps frugality. As you grapple with the revelation that your relationship may not be on Elise's express lane to the altar, you confront Luke, the chill romantic, armed with humor and a budget cap of $1,500. Clearly, diamonds are not always a man's best friend. Amidst the banter of carats and deadlines, the heart of the matter surfaces, your disappointment and uncertainty. Is Luke the procrastinator in shining armor, or are you stuck in a romantic limbo? Fear not, dear reader, for love stories are as diverse as the rings that seal them. Elise's approach may be an acquired taste, like caviar or pineapple pizza, and Luke's budget-conscious stance might be a nod to financial responsibility. Love, after all, is a grand performance, and each actor has their own script. Hold on to your seats. In the upcoming story update, we're weaving in more of your opinions. It's your chance to shape the narrative, so keep those insights flowing. Story update. First, some info. Elise and Rick will have been together 312 years by the time they get married. I also think I gave the wrong impression of their relationship. Elise didn't demand a proposal from Rick, and she was surprised when it came. They honestly sound like they just had a whirlwind romance. She also didn't say she had to be married by the end of 2 years, but that you should know if you want to marry her by the end of 2 years and be ready to be engaged so long as financially, work-wise, and in personal life, everything is okay. They were together for a year and a couple months before he proposed. He did not propose at 6 months. He told Luke he knew she was the one at 6 months and started looking for rings then, but they got engaged later than that. Also, I don't care how much Elise's ring cost or how big it is. I didn't include that part because I was being petty. I was annoying because Luke basically told me I don't get a say in what I'd be wearing. He developed the budget on his own without talking to me about it, and he knows next to nothing of jewelry and has never asked me what I like. I always thought he'd do what Rick and other mutual friends did, which is look together, develop the budget together, and then he picks what he thinks I would like. Rick didn't have the money for Elise's ring, his own words, so he made a financially sound decision to save up for a ring he knew she'd like but wouldn't break their bank either. I figured Luke was going to do the same thing, but apparently he had no intentions of doing so. Lastly, someone mentioned that Rick doesn't have as much going on as Luke does, which isn't true. I don't know what Rick actually does, but he works for a major company in the financial department. He's not an accountant, but he basically supervises all money coming and going, sort of like a treasurer. Elise is a school guidance counselor. So both are very educated, no kids outside of their relationship, and are doing okay. Anyway, with me and Lukey is very much go with the flow. More than I thought, actually. The reason I didn't reply to my first thread is because I decided to talk to Luke first. Long story short, we broke up. Several comments said I needed to communicate what I wanted clearly to Luke, so I took an hour to write out what I really wanted in the next couple of years, and then told Luke the night I posted the first thread. I told him that after 3 years, we should be seriously considering the next step. I told him I wanted kids, and with my age, I'm scared of health problems and complications, especially with COVID overtaking the hospitals around us. I told him that before we buy a house, we were looking, that I want to at least be engaged like Elise and Rick were. That's not a comparison per se, but I reflected on this, and I think buying a house with a boyfriend who can't tell me when he wants to be engaged isn't very smart. Elise and Rick were engaged when they bought their house, so were several of our married friends, and I realized that's the minimum stage in our relationship I want to be in before purchasing a home. Luke's reaction was not pleasant. He told me he felt like I was trapping him in a corner and demanding a ring when I wasn't. I told him I wanted a plan, and to see if we were on the same page. but I wasn't expecting a ring tomorrow or anything, just over the next year or so. He told me he'll propose when he's ready, and me bringing it up over and over again is making him not want to do it, because he thinks I just want a ring, but I don't. I want a family, but I don't want to be one of those women who has a kid with a man who doesn't actually want the same things I do. I told him that he doesn't seem like he wants to get married, and that's when he said it. Luke told me he wants to get married, but admitted he didn't know anymore if he wanted to marry me in particularly. When I asked why, he said he doesn't think I have enough ambition. Luke wants to get a promotion at his job. He works in marketing. He's going to school for his master's. And he's into self-improvement, like going to the gym and eating healthier and mental health books. He said he felt like I just wanted a marriage and kids and then I would be a mom, which he doesn't want me to do. He wants me to work, but I work as a secretary for psychology service. Luke makes almost 3x as much as I do, and I don't want to go back to school. I hated it the first time, and I can't afford to do it again even if I wanted to. Plus, I love my job. Great pay, great benefits, and my bosses and coworkers are really cool. But he told me that was an excuse and he doesn't want to be tied to someone who is, as he said, okay with just being okay, and that he wants more than that out of life. I was angry because I feel like I've asked this of him before and he always said he wants to marry me. I did tell him before I wanted to be a SAH if financially we could afford it, and I guess he didn't want me to be. So I told him I was done with the conversation and have been staying at a friend's house. I've messaged him a couple times to try and talk to him since, but he only responds saying he thinks we are on different pages and the relationship needs to be done so we can find what we want. I'm really sad and upset and feel like I wasted my time and that Elise was right. Luke took our relationship status off of Facebook and a ton of people have been asking what happened. His responses to my text messages also just seem so cold. From what I've heard from mutual friends, he sounds like he's doing okay and went out Friday night, New Year's Eve, with some friends to a bar. No, I have not talked to Elise, though she did reach out. But that's what happened. So Elise and Rick are the power couple with a whirlwind romance. And Luke and our dear narrator here were cruising down relationship lane until it hit a speed bump called communication. I mean, come on, Luke. You can't just take relationship advice from a guy named Rick. It's like taking financial advice from someone who thinks Monopoly money is real. Our protagonist decides to have the talk with Luke. You know, the one about life goals, family planning, and whether or not they should commit to a mortgage together. But oh boy, Luke ain't having it. He thinks he's being cornered like a raccoon in a trash can, and the conversation goes downhill faster than a snowboarder on a black diamond slope. Turns out Luke has aspirations, dreams, and a detailed plan, and he's not sure our narrator fits into his neatly color-coded, goal-oriented life, because apparently, the only color our narrator wants is the white picket fence. And just when you thought it couldn't get more dramatic, Luke drops the bomb that he's not sure if he wants to marry our dear narrator. Ouch! That's gotta sting like accidentally using hot sauce instead of eye drops. So our narrator packs her bags, crashes at a friend's place, and Luke is out there, probably attending relationship seminars on New Year's Eve or something. The Facebook status changes, mutual friends are scratching their heads, and it's all more confusing than trying to assemble IKEA furniture without the manual. But hey folks, don't let the drama get you down because, in the end, our narrator is free to find someone who appreciates the unique blend of ambition and okay with just being okay that she brings to the table. The moral of the story? Life is messy, relationships are complicated, and sometimes you need a breakup to make a breakthrough. Here's to new beginnings, personal growth, and finding someone who loves you for the masterpiece of chaos that you are. Our community is a treasure trove of insights, so let's take a moment to dive into the comments before we immerse ourselves in the next intriguing story. User Quicksilver 1964. He's effectively already dead, and I don't do necromancy. The fact she knew her boyfriend was not going to react well to that and would break up, but thought her friend was wrong to voice what she wanted was sad. And what her ex said about her, oof, he should have broken up with her before. Also, I think her friend was pretty smart for saying exactly what she expected on her first dates. This is a good way to find out if the person you are looking to date wants the same things as you. And she was right. Hope Up learns that she can ask for a timeline when it comes to relationships. User Wicked Cherub. I was the first one to get married out of my friends and my husband's friends. We hadn't been together very long relative to our friends' relationships. Soon after our wedding, half of them were engaged, half were broken up. I think weddings can really make people think about their lives and their futures and see what it is they really want instead of just floating along and not discussing anything. User Punkabell. That is awful. I feel so bad for your friend. After being with the same person for a decade and having to start over again in a completely different phase of life has to be so incredibly difficult for her. Hell, I had 2 engagements end after 2 years each, and it was so fucking hard to rebuild even in that much shorter amount of time. I truly hope that your friend is doing well. My mill doesn't let me have intercourse with my husband. My husband and I got married a year ago. He and I didn't live together before. In fact, we hardly saw each other because we both worked and studied at the same time, so our time was quite limited. We got married and went to live together in his apartment. Unfortunately, 2 months after our wedding, his father died in an accident. My mother-in-law and my husband, who is an only child, were devastated as it was quite sudden. My mother-in-law, left alone, began to suggest to my husband that we move with her to her house to keep her company, but because she is from another state, we couldn't due to our jobs and college. Then she came to us. Our apartment is 2 rooms, so my mother-in-law occupied one, and my husband and I occupied another. I mean, my mother-in-law never liked me. She is one of the mothers who think that no woman is good enough for her son. As a couple who are still in the honeymoon stage, we had intercourse very frequently, every day, even up to twice a day. This changed when my mother-in-law arrived, since the apartment is small, so I didn't feel comfortable doing it with her living there. The thing is that when we did have intercourse with my husband, my mother-in-law magically interrupted us. It didn't matter what time it was. Even if it was 3 a.m., she casually got up and knocked on our door asking, "What are we doing?" Or telling my husband that she feels bad because her head hurts or things like that. This has been going on since my mother-in-law moved in with us. It's been a stressful 7 months. Besides, I have no privacy of any kind. She criticizes everything I do, especially my food. My husband tries to give me my place, saying things like, "It's not true, Mom. The food taste is good." What really annoyed me was the fact that she started saying that several things of value and money were lost in her room casually the day I stayed at home. I had the day off from work and study in the afternoons. I really got fed up. I told my husband that this really wasn't what I expected. I agreed to let her move in with us because my father-in-law passed away, and I was really trying to be empathetic to her and her pain, but I'm not gonna let her call me a thief. Now I'm at my parents' house, my husband keeps calling me and sending me messages to come back, but I don't know what to do anymore. This is really stressful. I returned with my husband last Thursday. While I lived with my parents, we were talking and seeing each other. The first time I agreed to talk to him, I told him that he really had to do something about his mother, because our relationship was going down the drain. He kicked his mother out. She didn't take it so well. Remember how I told you she wanted to sell her house? Well, she actually did. She put her house up for sale. What surprised me so much is that she listed her house for sale at well below the average cost, considering where that house is located. Apparently, she was about to close the deal with some potential buyers. She hasn't communicated with anyone since she left. We also don't know if she returned to her house. And now everything is fine. My husband also thanked me because he couldn't stand having his mother in our apartment anymore. I also made it very clear to my husband that if his mother had behaved differently, I would never really have minded if she stayed with us. I feel a little bad for her, but she really brought it on herself. I was always kind despite her treatment. Here you are, basking in the bliss of newlywed life, only to find your honeymoon stage has an unexpected third wheel, none other than your dear mother-in-law. But wait, this isn't your average meddling mom. No, she's a pro at the art of the inconvenient entrance, turning your romantic rendezvous into a comedy of errors. You graciously agree to let her move in, thinking, what could possibly go wrong? Little did you know that your cozy apartment would transform into a battlefield of criticism and misplaced accusations. Suddenly, your love nest became a nest of discomfort, with your mother-in-law playing the role of an unwanted audience in your private life drama. Enter the plot twist. The accusations of lost valuables and the sudden real estate maneuvers. It's a roller coaster of emotions, with your mother-in-law selling her house faster than you can say, "Can we have some privacy, please?" And then, the grand finale. Your husband, the hero of the story, kicks his mom out, saving your sanity and probably the future of your marriage. The house is sold, the unwanted roommate is evicted, and you're left with the echo of newfound freedom. Through it all, you maintained your grace, a modern-day Cinderella facing not a wicked stepmother, but a meddling mother-in-law. You set boundaries, and when they were crossed, you didn't turn into a pumpkin. You packed your bags and retreated to the comfort of your parents' castle. Before we unravel the next chapter, let's take a pit stop at the community comments. Your thoughts and reactions are the heartbeat of our discussions. User Querulous Panda. You know what? That's fine though. The whole point of having a partner is so they can back you up and help you do the things that need to be done, especially when it's too hard to do on your own. So yeah, he used her backbone and her actions to accomplish a goal that he and her both wanted. Was it messier than it should or could have been? Yes, absolutely. But it got done, they're back together, and everything is back to how it should be. It's a win-win, and maybe next time he will have a bit more spine of his own. User Affectionate Fee 304. I'm glad your husband stuck up for you. It's just shitty that it took you leaving to make it happen. Here's hoping he stays his ground when it comes to his mother in the future. Honestly, if my MIL had been like this to me in my personal dwelling, I would have packed her shit myself and told her to GTFO and not come back. No fucks given if she had a place to stay after she's out my door. User Upstairs Cause 5736. glad to read this. I had followed the first one. Now, lock the doors. Be naked in your own house as you see fit. Eat and enjoy the food you make. Enjoy life and being married. In case your hubs get sucked back into her drama, remind him of how miserable you both were. Remind him that there are not to be two queens in the castle. Mom can be invited over, with some general rules and expectations in place and clearly spoken to her, preferably by your hubs, his mom. When difficult conversations needs to be said to our moms, hubs does his, I do mine. That's what works for us. 21 years married. We've had some great discussions, and now it's time to move on to our next intriguing story. Get ready for more twists, turns, and unexpected revelations. My fiancé, 37M, made me, 26F, get plastic surgery just to get engaged. Now I want to call off the wedding. I want to clarify that no, this is not a fake post. This is my first ever Reddit post. I felt compelled to get some outside perspective, BC. I don't confide in anyone in my personal life. No one knows I got this surgery. I'm glad I did post this, and I really appreciate everyone's feedback. I know what I need to do, but it's not easy. I will update in a few weeks. I, 26F, have been engaged to my fiancé, 37M, for 6 months now, and we're getting married next spring. Our relationship has not been easy, and we dated for 2 years before getting engaged, and he broke up with me once in between for 5 months. Right now, I am so conflicted. There was a time I was so eager to be engaged to him, and now I'm lost. First off, I kind of had to give an ultimatum to get engaged, to which he responded, he has not proposed all this time, BC, of something in my looks that he's not attracted to. He asked me to get a specific plastic surgery to correct this issue and that he would pay for it, and only then he's willing to get engaged. So, I went ahead and got the surgery. Anyways, we get engaged, and I can still tell he's not that attracted to me. BC, the surgery didn't really make a big difference. Doesn't compliment me, doesn't really touch me, or initiate things with me. He doesn't complain or bash my looks, but doesn't rave about it either. But this isn't the worst of it. I am currently in grad school, and he works full-time and makes over $500K a year. He is paying for the wedding and has rubbed it in my face on 2 occasions how I contribute nothing, and that I basically never have the right to complain about anything ever, because he works so hard to pay for things. I complained once that I feel we don't spend enough quality time. I just don't know if I'm making a huge mistake getting married to him. I don't want to be miserable. I am so anxious. I don't feel like he loves me. He pushes me away when he's having a bad day and doesn't talk to me. I just feel kind of neglected in the relationship, but I also don't want to be a victim and consider maybe he's right about some things. Breaking an engagement off is so embarrassing, and this would be his second broken engagement. And I don't want to do that to him. I just feel really lost. How do I go about this? Also, to those that ask what good qualities he has, I initially thought he was very kind, helps the poor, and goes on medical mission trips. He's a doctor. He is funny, and we actually get along really well when things are good. And I love his parents so much, and I really feel for them. They are older and want grandkids and want to see their son married. I don't think they realize how mean he can be. I'm not going to pretend his money is not appealing. I didn't grow up with a lot of money and watched my parents struggle as immigrants. I always wanted to make sure my kids will grow up in a financially stable environment. It's not really gold digging because I'm not a materialistic person. I don't care for expensive things, just don't want to struggle like my parents did. To those who think I can get a prenup or divorce, our culture and community is very strict. I probably should have mentioned we are Middle Eastern, not Muslims. We don't get divorced. It's not an option in our church. He ended his first engagement, not her. He said she became too obsessed with the wedding planning and felt like a different personality of her had come out after she secured the ring. We broke up today, 48 hours after my initial post and 1,000 plus people begging me not to get married. The wedding is off. This is how it went. He picked me up, BC. We had our engagement photo shoot today. He has been depressed for over a month now over a real estate lawsuit that he started. He has already been putting me on the back burner, BC, of this lawsuit and gives me zero attention, acts like I am an added stressor in his life. So I'm already fed up with the mopey attitude. He starts going off about how he's not in the mood to take pics today, and that it's hard for him to smile, how drained and unhappy he feels over the house. I literally exploded. With everything that's happened, I couldn't take it anymore. I told him I've never met such a literal child in my life. For him to break down over a lawsuit, he started. He is not fit to ever be the man, the sole provider of a family, to face real troubles of life. He has never had any real issues in his life. He is a literal child. I told him he never acknowledged how insane it is that I went and got surgery just for him to find me more attractive. He never recognized the care and sacrifices I've made for him. I did take ownership for letting this relationship drag out as far as an engagement, after he showed me time after time how unfit he is to be a life partner. It is my fault. I ignored the red flags and I kept having hope he would change one day. Maybe if I brought him a child, he would start to appreciate me more. Maybe seeing me as a mother, he would start to love me. I am so glad it didn't last long enough to find out. We didn't make it to the shoot, obviously. He ended up driving me back home. Sadly, we wasted the poor photographer's time. His reaction throughout all of this was very minimal. So cold, he would look down and look sad, but it looked like he was pretending. He said he was sorry, and he thought I deserved better than him. He said his emotional battery had run out. This was the end of it. I gave him the ring back and told him we're never speaking again. I want to thank everyone who responded to my original post. I read every single one. I can't express how much it helped me finally come to this decision today. You guys actually saved my life. I am not even sad. I am so relieved. I feel lighter. Thank you all so much. Then comes the engagement. Hooray, right? Wrong. The fiancé, Mr. Moneybags, isn't exactly throwing confetti. Instead, he's waving his paycheck around like a golden ticket and reminding our leading lady that she's living the high life thanks to him. But wait, there's more. The guy drops the bomb that they can't divorce due to cultural constraints. It's like adding a "till death do us part" clause, but not in the romantic sense. And just when you think things can't get crazier, the man-child enters the stage, brooding over a lawsuit he started, acting like a spoiled teenager and making our leading lady's life a soap opera. Finally, our leading lady takes the reins, hands back the ring, and says, "I'm out." It's a moment of empowerment, like a phoenix rising from the ashes of a relationship that had more red flags than a communist parade. Honestly, it's a relief. A toxic relationship in the rearview mirror, and our leading lady stepping into the future. No drama, no surgery-induced proposals, just a woman ready to live life on her terms. Here's to the next chapter being a drama-free zone. Cheers to emotional independence and a love life that doesn't require an operating room. Our community is a treasure trove of insights, so let's take a moment to dive into the comments. User Charlotte Lucas OP. Why do men date women a decade or more younger than them and then get mad that they're not on equal career footing to them? I mean, I know why. It's a built-in excuse to always have a means of making them feel shitty about themselves. But logically, like, school and work take time, my guy. It's not magically gonna go faster for her than it did for you. Try dating a 37-year-old woman in your field. But something tells me you won't, because a doctor the same age as you with the same salary probably won't be nearly as easy to manipulate into getting surgery, with some BS reasoning about whatever successful men are apparently attracted to. The fact that he was with a woman who didn't meet those requirements naturally kinda just shows that he's not, by his own definition, a successful man. So congrats on failing, Doc. He's a career sociopath who wanted a trophy wife he could control and mold. User singularity, gray. I don't know why, but I feel like she was an emotional punching bag for him. Every little grievance he has in life is handled by taking it out on his partner. Probably end up being physical. He was setting her up to be his abuse victim. The constant negging is a dead giveaway. As advice to anyone else, please never get any unnecessary procedures done on your body. For the aesthetics of someone that isn't you, you will have to live with that permanent change for the rest of your life when that person you did it for can discard you like paper in a bin at any moment. User ready guy, OP. Imagine a good friend of yours is in your situation and is asking you, "My spouse forced me into plastic surgery in order to be engaged with me. Should I accept this treatment of me?" From my own experience, when you accept this emotional abuse, it is a green card for the abuser, and trust me, it will get much, much worse after the wedding. We as women are taught to put other people's comfort first, but I'm here to say, it's okay to prioritize your own comfort and safety. Your partner's behavior is neglectful, hostile, manipulative, and abusive. Person who truly loves you accepts you as you are, wants to support your dreams and make you feel valued. It's up to you to decide whether you want to settle for abuse or keep looking for something real. As we wrap up this Reddit story, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more captivating Reddit stories. Your support means the world to me, I enjoy, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.